Good morning. This is Bob McIlvaine of the McIlvaine Company, and we're going to be using SPX Flow, Celeros as examples of our air water energy market guide. We've been providing market research information, growth strategies, and acquisition data for a number of decades. You can take examples such as ABB, where our original contract was with Brown Boveri to assess the air pollution control division of ASEA, and the resultant combination was ABB. And over the years, there have been massive acquisitions, mergers, and changes in the market. And I think this historical information is extremely valuable in understanding the competition now and certainly the market for the future. And I think SPX is a good example. So there's 75,000 niches in the air water energy market. Cope's Vulcan can achieve high EBITDA by concentrating on a tiny market such as turbine bypass valves. Cytol can concentrate on not just centrifuges, but disc centrifuges for breweries. And in fact, the sequence from major to minor here is you start with a market that we analyze of sedimentation and centrifugation of 8.6 billion, of which centrifuges are 3.3 billion. You've got clarifiers and hydrocyclones and things as well. The disc centrifuges is 1.3 billion. The food is just 500 million. And of that number, Cytol is generating revenues of around 10 million. So it has 2% of the market share for food disc centrifuges, but the share increases in the dairy and brewery segments where Cytol concentrates. It has a new direct drive model, which is anticipated to increase market share. Niche market growth is the key to increased profits. For instance, homogenization of certain foods improves their taste. So this is a growing market. APV is not only a leader in this growing niche, but with a new water recycling system is actually expanding the potential. Deltek and Dollinger are pursuing the purification of hydrogen and other gases as part of the initiative to reduce greenhouse gases. Nuclear is an interesting application because it certainly had its ups and downs, but presently with the combination of the threats to nuclear power plants, plus increased demand due to the Russian invasion, the Clyde Union nuclear reactor pump system provides a safe shutdown. It expands the opportunity from just a product to a system sale. And I think as we go along, this is a big opportunity for growth, is to take a product, have a complementary product, or to expand it with to a total system approach with remote monitoring and control. The brands referenced above are divisions of SPX Flow and Celeros. All at one time were part of SPX. So SPX will be used as an example of the benefits of the comprehensive AWE market guide. It addresses pursuit of multiple complementary products, 75,000 niche markets, approximately 10 million each, niches which maximize profits, competitor strengths, acquisition or organic growth routes. SPX is a good example to show the importance of the guide. over the past 30 years, some 50 companies have become at least temporarily part of what are now 3 companies: SPX, SPX Flow, and Celeros. So in our forecast of the 750 billion, 400 billion is industrial, and 350 billion is discrete or non-industrial. SPX has 2 major divisions: HVAC, with expected 2022 revenues of 900 million, of which measurement and detection is 500 million, the HVAC 900 million. But of that total 1.4 billion, only 18% is industrial. So SPX Flow has anticipated revenues of 1.7 billion this year, of which 90% is expected to be industrial. Celeros has revenues of 200 million that anticipates this year, and expects 95% in the industrial process area. So this, the relative ratio of industrial to non-industrial is important relative to complementary products. So somebody like SPX that is got HVAC, cooling towers and things in commercial and residential buildings doesn't have many products that are complementary to those used in industry. On the other hand, SPX Flow, first of all, it has a very large amount of industrial products, and many of which are complementary to each other. And the same is on a smaller scale with Celeros. Many of the acquisitions by the various SPX combinations have been predicated on supplying solutions. A dryer, evaporator, mixer, or cooling tower needs auxiliaries such as valves, filters, pumps, hose, couplings, fittings, measurement devices, controls, and guidance. Auxiliaries are also needed for utilities such as water and compressed air. But these auxiliaries are generally unaffected by the processes and not likely to be, one company is not likely to be supplying both. On the other hand, certain utilities such as ultra-pure water, clean rooms, HVAC, and air pollution control are specific to the process. So in the case, we mentioned Andritz, Alfa Laval, and GEA, for instance, all of them are a lot of chemical process equipment, food process equipment, but they all have air pollution control system activities as well. Companies such as Andritz, GEA, and Alfa Laval are major suppliers of valves and pumps, but their process equipment is the bulk of their sales. And the auxiliaries are about 25%, and non-process auxiliaries are about 5%. The analysis identifies the products for both SPX Flow and Celeros. And as we see here, with SPX Flow, there's a very large amount that's in process. And somebody like Light and Mixer does a lot of research for their clients and is involved in providing the solutions for a food or pharmaceutical or chemical application. And this generates the potential of adding all the auxiliaries as well. And so this is important to in evaluating companies, is the synergy between the process and the auxiliaries that can be sold along with it. And the assumption, which is I think a good one, is that the package can be sold at an EBITDA that's greater than any of the parts. The following chart identifies the products for both SPX Flow and Celeros. First two columns identify the company and brand. The third column has a P if the brand is process equipment, and an A if it is an auxiliary, and a U if it is a utility. This is an edited version. We have the full Word document with all this more granular information, and that is completely relevant because other divisions may make centrifugal reciprocating diaphragm or rotary pumps, but not all of them. The chart links to McIlvaine forecasts for specific products. So we can forecast just pulse jet intake filters versus static filters for gas turbines, and diaphragm pumps for food rather than any of the other three major types or any of the 7 rotary types. And when you get into valves, for instance, we have 8 different types of valves, and they can either be control or isolation. So there is a lot of segmentation that helps get to these very small niches. So this is part of the chart which shows, the function. And then Hydro, with their dryers and evaporators, is a process-oriented company, but would use lots of the auxiliaries, whereas the Bolting Systems would be all auxiliaries. APV has got the combination, actually, with the mixers, but also the pumps and the valves. Brandon Luby is particularly interesting from the amount of IIoT expertise that it has, which would be useful to the other divisions in terms of measurement technology. And with IIoT, we divide that into guide, control, and measure. And Brandon Luby would be very high on the measurement standpoint. Maybe to get off track a little bit, somebody like Lightnin, who is doing this research in their laboratories for best ways to make a food or a chemical, has the opportunity on the, so we have guide, control, and measure. Somebody like Brandon Luby would be great for the measurement. But I think it's important that companies like SPX not exceed the guide function to Rockwell or any of the other companies that are capable of providing the guide function, because if they're doing the research in the laboratories, they certainly can be the major supplier of that guide in the equation of guide, control, and measure. And then you have a company like Del Air, for instance, which would be in the utility auxiliaries, really, rather than process auxiliaries. As we talked about, Lightnin is a major player in the process side. Cytel is a minor player. But again, for the SPX side, there's a lot of the process equipment, a lot of potential then to bring the auxiliaries along and to provide them packages. Celeros has mostly auxiliaries, but on the other hand, they have made the auxiliaries into systems. I was mentioning the Coast Vulcan systems, but take Clyde Union, for instance, with reactor pumps, and they basically are providing a safe shutdown system. So they're really taking an auxiliary and providing it as part of the process. And I think that's an important distinction. So Lightnin, in addition, with the addition of Philadelphia Mixing Solutions, is a market leader in the process segment. And Hydro and APV also add to the over 900 million in anticipated 2002 process revenues. The high ratio of process to auxiliary shows a big potential for the total solutions, as we've just been talking about here. So just to orient you as to what we're offering, we have a guide that has an umbrella report, 20 or so individual reports, and tens of millions of forecasts, monthly acquisition and market share newsletters, and of course our private consulting. Acquisition news and analysis remains relevant for decades. When a company is buying another company, it tends to put its best foot forward as to why it was such a good acquisition. So you've got good sales information along with the purchase price and a clear understanding of why the acquisition was made and what the expectation would be. And we link to this with a acquisition database where you can find the acquired or the acquiring companies and then go to all these articles. So here, for instance, are some of the articles relevant to the SPX Flow. You know, it's sold to Lone Star funds for $3.8 billion. Its 2021 revenues were up 13%. It bought Philadelphia Solutions for $65 million just a couple of years ago. So that's a relevant number in terms of assessing the present activity and strength. Cytol was a 2012, that's 10 years ago, acquisition of 10 million, with sales of 10 million at the time. SPX bought United Dominion for 1.8 billion in 2001. One of the reasons they bought them is United Dominion had previously bought Brandon Luby in 1997, and in 1999, the flow control sales of United Dominion were 1 billion. Now, in terms of Celeros, the Apollo Global Management set up Celeros after paying $400 million for the power and energy segments of SPX Flow. SPX bought plenty in 2001 when revenues were 30 million and of course 50 million, and of course that became part of Celeros. In 2000, SPX purchased Cope's Vulcan, which had revenues at the time of 30 million. SPX sells the Zurich remnants to Sartell Valves later, and in 2011, SPX bought Clyde Union Pumps for $1.25 billion. So that's kind of a showstopper. The historical information allows analysis of changing value for companies. In this case, purchased for $1.3 billion at various points in time, and sold for $400 million to Apollo. But all this needs to take into account relevant divestitures along the way, but nevertheless, it's extremely valuable information to be working from. I'd like to thank you actually for spending some time with us. My name is Bob McIlvaine. You can reach me at 847-226-2391, McIlvaine Company, and we'd be happy to talk to you about our services, how we might be able to help you on a consulting basis, or even just generally to discuss the market. We're always open for such discussions. Again, Bob McIlvaine, thanking you, and look forward to talking to you.